We live in a society. That society may become good, but it also might become bad. A bad future society is known as a dystopian future. Today, we're going to be talking about the dystopian future iceberg. If you're not familiar with iceberg charts, they start off with more well-known and normal things such as Cyberpunk or Blade Runner, and as we get further down in this chart, we're going to be talking about darker stuff such as Soylent Green. Real quick before I begin, I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching my videos and supporting my channel so much. It means a lot to me that you guys would take time out of your day to watch me ramble on about complete nonsense. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into the video. Starting off at the top with Cyberpunk / Blade Runner. So Cyberpunk, most people know this from just the game Cyberpunk, but this is actually the name of an entire genre of media. Cyberpunk societies are usually like this high-tech society that is decaying and it's being controlled by mega corporations that have immense control over the people. In this universe, people usually integrate with technology, getting better versions of things like arms or legs or even eyes so that they can survive in these huge violent cities. Usually they deal with themes of societal collapse, negative consequences of corporations and government control, and overall just kind of a darker future, but still in a really cool way. Probably one of the most popular pieces of media in this genre is Cyberpunk 2077. I'm sure you've heard of this. This is an open world action video game that is set in a dystopian metropolis called Night City. In this city, corporations rule and are extremely greedy and evil. The line between humanity and technology blurs, and overall it's a really cool game with a lot of cool themes inside of it. Blade Runner, on the other hand, is also set in the cyberpunk genre, where it has two movies. These movies are set in a dystopian future Los Angeles, where the world is in decay, it's very gloomy, it seems like the city is in disrepair, and the main storyline focuses around these bioengineered humans called replicants that are used for dangerous off-world labor, but some of these replicants escape to Earth. So humanity does the obvious thing and creates basically bounty hunters to go track them down. These bounty hunters are called Blade Runners, which are like detective assassins that just identify the replicants, track them down, and kill them. If you haven't seen the original Blade Runner movie, I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a lot of themes about identity and what makes a human, and things that I feel like we're gonna have to deal with pretty soon with the emergence of AI and all this weird online AI stuff. Next up, we got The Giver. The Giver is a book about this seemingly utopian society that has eliminated pain, conflict, and seemingly all suffering. But the way they did this was by enforcing these strict rules that took away people's freedom of choice. People live in this highly controlled society where essentially every aspect of their life, from choosing careers to who they want to marry, is chosen for them and meticulously regulated by a committee of elders. Citizens also take medicine so they don't feel deep emotions or even see colors, and it seems they have suppressed the emotions and individuality of every person, except for one person, and that is the receiver of memory. This role is given to one person in their society, where this person gets to have placed in their brain all the histories and memories of the world before it was perfect. This includes the world's true past, including the good things and the bad things that happened. In the book, the main character begins to understand how deep the cost is of society enforcing this sameness on everyone. The guy receives these memories and realizes how empty their way of life is, and also learns that they're actually doing some really bad things, like euthanizing the weak or the elderly or the disabled just to maintain control. This leads him to question everything he has known and ultimately leave their controlled society. I feel like The Giver is a book that almost everybody reads at some point in school. I like it a lot because it really deals with themes like self-expression, and if everybody was the same, what would society be like? It would be empty. It would be meaningless. Mad Max / Waterworld. So Mad Max and Waterworld are these movies about an apocalyptic world where they are very similar in opposite ways, if that makes sense. In the Mad Max world, there is this huge energy crisis in the form of a shortage of oil, which leads to nuclear weapons destroying most of the civilizations there in Australia, leaving everybody in this terrible desert with very little water or resources. And I think you could probably assume that like the entire world is like this, but I heard one theory that it's only Australia and the rest of the world's actually okay, but people just don't even know, so they don't leave Australia, which is kind of funny. One of the most important resources in Mad Max is gas, as they all ride around on these ridiculous vehicles attacking each other for the resources, but probably more important is water. In contrast, Waterworld is kind of like the opposite. The world is completely covered with water because the polar ice caps melted and flooded presumably all the land. Fresh water is also extremely scarce, but even more scarce is soil or dirt to grow food. In the movie, we learn that the main character is actually a mutant and has grown gills so that he can dive down into the ocean and grab dirt from the bottom, which actually makes him pretty valuable. Also, in this movie, everybody is trying to find this mythical dry land, and this little girl has a map on her back with essentially the map to this dry land. And in the same way, Mad Max is always talking about this mythical oasis that actually has water and like green plants. And Waterworld's also like Mad Max in the sense that oil is extremely important and everybody rides around on these ridiculous vehicles and boats. And yeah, I think even the producers of Waterworld said they were trying to do kind of like a play on Mad Max, but with the ocean. Next up, we got Logan's Run. So Logan's Run is a really cool dystopian future movie that I feel like enough people have not watched. So people in this society live inside this huge domed city and are completely oblivious to the world outside because they've been told that the world has been destroyed by a nuclear cataclysm, leaving the world barren and poisonous. In an attempt to combat overpopulation in the dome, everybody gets renewed at the age of 30, which really means that people basically just get killed. And it's funny because they do this like huge ritual thing where people like float up into the sky and then blow up. And people are like, yay, they got renewed. And then, you know, obviously they're dying. But people are getting really excited to do this. Some, however, flee because they don't want to blow up and get renewed. And they are called runners. The main character in the movie is called Logan, and he becomes a runner, so Logan's Run. He goes outside of the dome where he realizes it's actually not bad at all, and plants can grow, and there's even other people outside. There's an old guy, which they have never seen before because, you know, people all die before the age of 30. And this old guy's like, have you ever heard of family? And they don't even know what a family is because people in this society are completely hedonistic. Nobody gets married. They're all just sleeping around all the time, doing whatever they want. They don't know who their parents are. They've never heard of long-term commitment. And basically, Logan goes back and he's like, hey, we don't have to live in this dome and act like animals. And yeah, it's a pretty cool movie. 1984. George Orwell's 1984 is a movie about a terrible society. This society is a totalitarian regime led by something called the Party that enforces absolute control over every aspect of people's lives in this made-up nation called Oceania. Oceania is an oligarchy of tyrannical rule where a small group of people called the Party have absolute power over everything, and they use this system called English socialism. They use constant surveillance, propaganda, historical manipulations to suppress individual thought to the point where people believe things like war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The Party also does this thing called doublethink, where the Party will hold two contradicting beliefs as true, ignoring the obvious conflict between them. In Oceania, even having a different opinion that doesn't quite align totally with the Party is a thought crime that is punishable by death. In this world, there's also 3 distinct countries: Oceania, Eurasia, and East Asia, that are always constantly at war. Oceania also does this mandatory thing called the 2 minutes of hate every day, where people are required to go to this place or watch this program that is essentially just directing hate at whatever country they are fighting at the time. It's basically like brainwashing the citizens to hate the country that they are fighting. What's funny is they will do this 2 minutes of hate against a country like Eurasia for like a really long time, and then the next day they will just start doing the 2 minutes of hate against another country that they are now in a different conflict with, such as East Asia, and the party will just pretend they were doing this 2 minutes of hate against that country instead of the other one, and basically erase the history of that and say, no, we were always at war with this nation, not this one. And yeah, it's just a total war on history and information. Snowpiercer. Snowpiercer is a movie about these people that live on a giant train that is traveling through an apocalyptic ice age wasteland. It's a really crazy concept, but it makes sense kind of when you think about it. The elite in the train live at the front of the train where they get like nice things and eat good food, but the poor live terrible lives in the very back of the car where they are forced to eat bugs and they're essentially kept as like slaves. The reason these people stay on this train is because it can't stop and it's traveling like very, very fast. But if it did stop, the engine would shut off forever because it is a perpetual motion machine engine. So if it stops, it can never turn on again, and then the entire population would freeze to death. So anyways, the main character makes his way to the front of the train where he meets different people throughout the train cars, and it's kind of funny, but people theorize that this movie is actually a sequel to Willy Wonka, and that like Ed Harrison's character, who is like the train conductor and the guy who built the train, is supposed to be like the adult version of Charlie from the Chocolate Factory. And it kind of makes sense because like the conductor of the train who built the train, who would have been Charlie, is looking for a new successor just like Willy Wonka was in his movie. And so there's a lot of similar themes. It's really, you know, kind of over the top. They lose people as they move throughout the train just like in Willy Wonka. And yeah, to me, this is a sequel to Willy Wonka, so let me have this. The Time Machine, 1960. So this was a movie made in 1960 about this guy who builds this time machine and then goes to different periods of history in the future. Eventually in this movie, he ends up going to the year 800,000, or it's 800,000-ish. I can't remember the exact year. Anyways, when he gets there, humanity has evolved into two distinct species. One is the regular humans that kind of are really dumb and they act like children and they live on the surface of the earth like normal people should, and they are called the Eloi. The other group of people are called the Morlocks, and they are these horrible white ape-looking creatures that live underground and feed on the regular people. What's interesting is these Morlocks that live underground have built this large sphinx-looking head thing that kind of resembles a Morlock, and they play this air raid siren where somehow they have conditioned the regular humans to walk into the Sphinx so that they can eat them. When the time traveler sees this, he realizes that these air raid sirens are just a remnants of the past when they had all kinds of different world wars, and that I guess these people were conditioned because they were supposed to get in the bunker for like the world wars to get out of the way of like bombings and stuff. And so the Morlocks took advantage of this so they could basically use it as like a dinner bell for themselves, to where the people just walk right up to them and then get eaten. What's funny about this is the Morlocks essentially raise the Eloi as human cattle, and they supply them with clothing and they feed them every day, and it's just kind of crazy to me that they would use them as their food source and not just, you know, feed themselves. And it's kind of funny, the time machine guy, he gets there and he's like, oh, these people are so dumb because this is communism, and they've been in communism for so long that they don't know how to do anything, and they're just taken care of by something, but really they're just being farmed. What's the difference? Next up we got Soylent Green. Soylent Green is about a society in the year 2022 where the world is extremely overpopulated and it's really polluted, and there's basically been a massive environmental collapse that was so huge that there is an economic depression where natural resources and wildlife are almost completely destroyed. So as you can imagine, it's terrible. There's almost no food, there's no wildlife, which is terrible. People survive on these strange concentrated pieces of food that are in blocks that are produced by this corporation called Soylent. The newest of Soylent's food is called Soylent Green and is said to be made from plankton in the ocean. And they promise that they can feed everybody with this new Soylent Green, but there really isn't enough to go around at the time. Anyways, most people in this universe are unemployed. They're roaming the streets, and sometimes there's so many people that these trucks come in and scoop them up and dump them in there like they're animals. And real quick, spoiler warning if you haven't seen a movie from like the 1960s, it turns out that the main food source that everybody is eating, Soylent Green, is actually just ground up humans. And it's a big secret that they're trying to keep quiet, and there's like a big plot where this guy is murdered because he is basically a risk because he might talk about how Soylent Green is humans. And also, the oceans have died, essentially, and there's no more plankton. They don't even exist, which is really terrible. And these corporations are essentially breeding people like livestock to then feed back to those exact people. But you know what's great? We don't live in any of those societies. Overall, I would like to live in a cyberpunk society if I was going to be in one. What would you guys like to live in? Probably not Soylent Green. That one's really terrible. I don't know why you'd want to live in that society. That's a really bad one. Like, I know in 1984, really terrible, you know, but at least they're not eating each other. Your homework is to watch Logan's Run. That is a fun movie. There are some more mature themes in it, though, just so you know. Ooh, Blade Runner. That's a good movie. Watch Blade Runner. Such an amazing film. I highly recommend both of the Blade Runners. I didn't like the first one as much as I liked the second one. People are going to hate on me for that, but that's kind of just my opinion. But we live in, today, overall, pretty good society. In my opinion, I am very optimistic for the future. Nintendo Switch 2, right? Am I right, gamers? Plug? No, it's not sponsored yet. But seriously, thank you guys so much for watching. I cannot believe that you take your time out of your day to watch my videos. And if you are watching this right now, then you are just like me for real, and you are deranged. And thank you for being just like me. But thank you guys for 500,000 subs. I could not have done it without you, truly. If you would like to support the channel, I have merch that is linked in my bio. This is not it, but I'll just put some up on the screen right now. Look, I got Hollow Earth and Kraken is Real and Cryptid Hunting Team. Me and the boys. But yeah, seriously, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.